evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for this great award. I think the award is to our faculty and staff at MSUM. For those who have constantly supported all what I did at this university. When I came here 32 years ago, I never thought I would be living in tears. It's true, guys. I'm leaving, but I have made some happy, some not too happy. I did cause a lot of trouble for some people, but I did all in good faith. It was all done in the name of higher learning and in the interest of our students. I want to thank you for honoring me. And this evening, I was thinking, what should I say? But before I start, I was wondering whether this lecture is going to be on the final exam. And I'm looking around, some don't have their writing cards. Some have no pencils, in fact. And for those who are not here today, tell them that we highly miss them. That surely they will come up to me and I will give them the notes. But the notes will be in Russian. And then they will pay me to translate for them. I was wondering, what should I talk to you guys about tonight? And some will guess that it's going to be about Russia and the Soviet Union and Ukraine. Well, you got it wrong. And others were saying, hey, maybe I'm going to be talking about what to do at the university, because they know Andrew is always talking about something else. He's not happy about something. We've got to go and do something about this or that. You understand? I'm going to disappoint you also. You know, the truth of the matter is that this evening I have decided to talk to you about the rights of indigenous people. I have selected the rights of indigenous people simply because of my belief and trust in human rights. And that human rights are not only the rights of individuals, but they are rights that are enjoyed by persons irrespective of their creed, their backgrounds, their race, or their color. We do not often talk about indigenous persons. And usually when even we talk about indigenous persons, we often think that indigenous persons reside only in the United States. And so, this afternoon, we are going to ask ourselves first and foremost, who are indigenous people? Second, we should also talk about what do indigenous people want? What are the human rights of indigenous people? And finally, we will also address the significance of the UN Declaration on Indigenous People. Let's ask ourselves first and foremost, before getting to indigenous persons, what are human rights? Basically, human rights are those rights that individuals enjoy simply because they are human. Simply because they are human, irrespective of their race, color, or creed. And the human rights are fundamental. They are not only fundamental, they are indivisible, interdependent, and inalienable. You cannot give them up. They are yours, ipso facto, because you are a human being. Whether you are in Jamaica or in Tanzania, you do enjoy human rights, or you are entitled to human rights. Consequently, human rights do not know any geography. They are universal. They are yours, and they are fundamental. Mind you, the ideas of human rights are enshrined in the Bible. They are enshrined in the Quran. They are also found in many philosophical ideas, etc. But human rights gained roots after World War II, following the Holocaust. And after World War II, human rights are enshrined in the United Nations Convention, a charter, namely the preamble to the charter. Secondly, Article 1 of the charter, Article 2, Article 55, Article 56, Article 72, and Article 76. However, the UN Charter does not expand on the concept of human rights. It talks in general terms. Consequently, the UN Charter itself is a lex imperfecta, meaning an imperfect document. Consequently, in 1948, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights was adopted. And you know who was in the lead? Mrs. Eleanor Roosevelt. Thanks to Mrs. Eleanor Roosevelt and other great leaders. But the Universal Declaration was not intended to be a binding document. So consequently, following its adoption, the United Nations has expanded on human rights concepts in the Covenants of 1966, in the Convention on Genocide, 1948, the Convention on the Rights of Women, the Convention on Racial Discrimination, the Convention on Torture and Inhumane Treatment of Persons, the Convention on Enforced Disappearances, etc. Meanwhile, though, regional documents have also been adopted. Therefore, we live in an era where human rights law have been elevated to a higher level. No longer can states say that it is their internal affairs. It is no longer an internal matter of the state as to how it treats its individuals. With that, let's ask ourselves, who are indigenous persons? By the way, because of the diversity of indigenous people, we do not have a definition. And maybe this is right, that there is no definition. Meanwhile, though, indigenous persons are those individuals who resided in a place, in a particular territory, before the arrival of the settlers. And these settlers in some parts of the world were colonial masters. Secondly, these are individuals who have self-identified themselves as indigenous persons. They are people who have strong links to their territories and surrounding natural resources. They have a distinct language, culture, and beliefs. They are different from the dominant groups. Meanwhile, though, indigenous people worldwide are about 370 million people who reside in about 70 countries worldwide. They live in the United States. They are in Bolivia. They are in Canada. They are in New Zealand. And they are also on the African continent. You will find indigenous people in Japan, etc. But what distinguishes indigenous persons from other groups of people? Indigenous people, by the way, gentlemen and ladies, are faced with continuous injustice. Indigenous people suffer from the consequences of historic injustice, including colonization, dispossession of their land, territories, and resources. The indigenous people constitute 1/3 of the world's poor. Mind you, smoking, substance abuse are more common among indigenous persons. Suicide rates and incarceration rates are also higher amongst the indigenous people. Mind you, the level of poverty is higher among indigenous persons. Their plight has been documented by the United Nations and by the Committee on Indigenous Persons. Furthermore, indigenous cultures are threatened with extinction. They are threatened with extinction. About 90% of all indigenous languages will soon disappear, and many have disappeared. Their languages are dying. Their languages are dying. Their local knowledge is not valued. Their local knowledge is not considered to be part of what we call intellectual property rights. Indigenous people, guys, are denied also their rights to own the land. Consequently, the plight of indigenous persons around the world is such that their basic, fundamental human rights are on attack, are being denied.